Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another video. So in this one, I want to give my non-spoiler review for episode 20 of The Walking Dead titled Splinter. It's actually going to be pretty hard to do a non-spoiler review, but I am going to try my best just because, stuff does happen in this episode. Things do happen, but if you're talking in terms of spoilers, yeah, you can talk about a lot of things that do happen, but in terms of non-spoilery, you almost have to stick to the performances because it's very performance-based as an episode, but I've made some notes, so we'll see how I do here. So if you are new here and you want more Walking Dead content like this, just make sure to be a subscriber. Now, this episode is very princess-focused. It is very heavily from her point of view. Pretty much the entire episode, we are with her. There's really no leaving her, and you do get a lot of backstory, with the princess. It's not what you're thinking in terms of backstory, but you do get a lot of backstory, and I actually prefer this a lot more. I prefer the way they told her backstory because you're just kind of getting to the point. You do learn a lot about the character, and I feel like I really know the character a lot. I actually do really like the princess a lot more now. I already liked her, but this episode really made me like her quite a bit because of her backstory, and also I really like the writing and how they handle certain scenes, especially with Princess's mental state. There's things that she actually does in here where it is very relatable, and there's also resolutions to certain things near the end of the episode where wow, that is such an awesome thing to bring up. So they handled this episode really well in terms of writing it and handling mental health issues. They did it so perfectly. I was really impressed by it actually, and for you or for those that have watched the episode, I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about with that. They really portrayed that really well. It's through the writing, it's through the dialogue, and a lot of it too is from the performances of Kari Payton and Paula Lazaro. This episode is very princess backstory ridden, and a lot of, I guess, from her point of view and just the scary situation that she's in. And a lot of it was really good. The performances were good, but I would say, disappointed a little with the episode because there's not a lot of Commonwealth stuff in the episode. I'll touch on that in a second, but in terms of the other characters, Eugene is actually pretty smart. I would say most of our characters, actually, if anything, our characters, I would say, they're pretty smart. They're pretty smart in how they handle it. There's a lot of revelations towards the end, and how they handled this whole situation. They were actually very smart in how they handled that, and it's probably because they've been through this situation before. Princess hasn't really been in that situation, and just with the stuff that she was dealing with, there was really no other way for her to deal with these things besides how she dealt with them. Luckily, things turned out good for her because things could have went really bad. She could have really messed some stuff up for her, but Eugene everyone was pretty smart. And I bring up Eugene because there's certain things that he does say where I'm like, wow, that's really smart that you thought of that, but obviously I have to wait for my spoiler review to talk about that. Now, for a lot of this episode, I was pretty bored. There's some stuff throughout the middle and towards the end where I wasn't as bored, but in the beginning I was very bored, and I like the princess, and obviously the story that you get with her, it was great and all, but there's just an element of too much focus on her. I wanted more Commonwealth. I really did. And the stuff that you do get with the Commonwealth, it is actually pretty awesome. They are pretty ruthless. It's pretty nuts. There's a scene actually where there's some dialogue used that I just laughed at because I wasn't expecting that, and then what happens after, I was like, whoa, these guys are ruthless, man. They don't give a shit. And because we know who the Commonwealth are, we know that story from the comic, a lot of what happens in here, I'm not so terrified of. I would actually like to know, if you're a show-only viewer, and you most likely aren't watching this video, just because, unless you have AMC Plus, but if you don't know of the comic, if you don't know of the Commonwealth and what they're like, were they more terrifying? Were they actually more terrifying in the episode? Are you unsure of them? Because I wonder if that could definitely play into, making this episode a lot better, because there's a lot of should we trust these people? And there's that whole vibe. And I knew the whole time, yeah, you can trust them. The Commonwealth, they're not bad. They're bad in how they operate in terms of they can take rights away from you, this and that. It's kind of like the real world. There's a lot of issues like that where, the government's bad, but they're not really bad, as long as you follow the rules, basically. which is not necessarily a bad thing to follow the rules, but there are certain things where, you know, certain people have to fight for their freedoms and protest and things. And that's kind of the same way with the Commonwealth. Like, they're not necessarily bad, but because it's so much smaller than like a real government in our own world, you know, things are a little bit different. Things are people close in on things faster. And yeah, I mean, I thought the Commonwealth and their portrayal in this episode was definitely amazing. Again, like this episode in terms of just writing wise, in terms of the screenplay, and it was great. I liked the entire flow of the episode. I liked just the pacing. I was bored. Yeah, I know. And it sounds like I'm contradicting myself, but I was bored more because it was Princess, if you get what I mean. Like if it was anyone else, like Ezekiel, Eugene, I don't know about Yumiko, but Ezekiel and Eugene for sure, I wouldn't have been as bored because I'm very interested in those characters. And that's not to take away from Princess at all. She's a great character. And again, what Paula Lazaro does as the character is absolutely amazing. It is. There's a scene in here where she's getting very emotional and just the way she kind of shuts it down and her expressions. It's like, it's powerful. Right. And like as someone who I like Princess, she's not my favorite character, but when she was in that scene doing all of that, I was absolutely captivated. It's just I wanted something more, right? Like I wanted it to be outside of the train car. I wanted more of that. And that's kind of the question that I have for you guys too, for those who have watched it, is should there have been more Commonwealth stuff? I understand that there was limitations, and that's the thing with these episodes, is that I think that they're always going to be viewed as like the pandemic episodes, just because they are kind of that, you know, and I'm really interested in the differences with filming now compared to then. I know things are a lot different now, especially in the States. Things are different. People are reopening everywhere now. And I think they've gotten to a point where in terms of filming, they are a lot more comfortable. But how much is really different from now compared to last summer when they were filming for these 6 episodes, or last fall, I guess, for these 6 episodes? Like these 6 episodes feel very limited. I would say that now that we're done 4 of them, next week's episode, you know, like from early reviewers anyways, they are saying that it's not that as good. It is the worst one of the 6, so I'm not looking forward to that. We'll see, but I'll talk about that in my trailer breakdown this Sunday. Here's Negan is probably going to be really good. Like everyone is hyping that one up. Like people who have watched it, they're saying like, that episode is like the episode of these 6. It is the best one by far. It could be one of the best ones of the series. So we're almost through these episodes, and I don't want to make it sound like we're trying to get through them, like it's like hard work, but I really can't wait for the final season. I'm okay with watching this. I'm happy that we have something. Like honestly, this episode, like I don't know if it was completely needed, but then again, I mean, if you actually think about what happens in the episode, not a lot happens when you compare it to the comic and what they have to do next. Like you're really able to show off like the next part or pick up right from where the comic starts with with this new arc. And this episode probably wouldn't have mattered. I mean, it really was a Princess episode. So, I mean, yeah, I was pretty bored throughout this episode, but there were good moments, and you'll see what I mean by that. Unless you really enjoyed it. Like, some people probably have enjoyed it. Like, that wasn't me. This definitely was my least liked episode of the 4 that I've watched so far. If I were to rank them, I would say 19 was my favorite. And then 18 and 17 are very similar. Like, they are very close. They're interchangeable. Like I can make 17 second or 18 second. Like there's moments I like from both of them. Like 17, I like the fact that you see Maggie and there's just a lot of catching up with the story, arriving back to Alexandria. Negan is there. Maggie sees Negan, right? So it feels like a real episode of The Walking Dead, not like these bottle episodes. And 18 is more bottle episode-like, but I like Leah. I like the addition of her and Daryl's relationship and stuff like that. But yeah, 19 definitely, I really loved Robert Patrick. I think that was a really amazing episode. 20, like I like Princess. I liked how they portrayed the Commonwealth, but there was just too much Princess and I was a bit bored throughout. So that's why I would put that at the bottom so far. Next week's episode, I think, could even be lower than this episode, just because from what people are saying anyways, it's not that great of an episode. But obviously I'm going to form my own opinion on that because I don't follow a lot of what these people say. And then we have Here's Negan, which is like that. I'm so excited for that episode. That's coming in 2 weeks from now. I can't wait to watch it. I really cannot wait to watch it. Like I want more of that backstory, and I also just want more of where Negan is going to stay in Alexandria, because that episode is going to be primarily like Negan's backstory, but there is going to be some stuff like besides that. Maggie's going to see Negan, and that's kind of why I'm excited for next week's episode too, is just to be back in Alexandria. Like it feels like we haven't been there in so long, because we really haven't. Like episode 18 was Daryl and him in a cabin basically. 19, they were away in like some bar or something like that. 20, they were in a train car. basically, for the most part, right? And so I can't wait for episode 21. And yeah, I'll just leave it here. Post all your thoughts down below if you have watched the episode. Try not to be too spoilery, but I understand it if people are going to be spoilery because it does happen. But yeah, I guess I would say if you haven't watched it yet and you don't want spoilers, then just don't check out the comment section because it's probably going to be like riddled with spoilers. So yeah, I'll leave it here. Post all your thoughts down below. Hope you guys all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.